We aren't live, Al, so you don't have to behave, but we are going to be recorded, so, and then we'll put it on later on, so, good thing we have, but we can delete the bad scenes, if you will. Yep. Good evening. Thank you for coming out on a less than perfect night. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully, you've got your generator on standby and your gasoline and batteries and bread and milk and water and all those fun things that we probably are going to need. We continue tonight with our series on discouragement. 2 weeks ago, we turned the corner and we began to look at the cure. And there are some things that we can do. I'm not saying that it will prevent. These things aren't bulletproof. It's not going to make us immune from discouragement, but it's certainly not something that we should be wallowing in, if you will. And I think the first two, anyway, are very practical. They involve physical things. Obviously, there's a spiritual agenda, probably no surprise. And we noted that under the cure, number one, is to take care of your body. And folks, that's just a no-brainer. But we live in a culture that is not balanced. We live in a culture, I perceive, that demands more energy than we simply can give it. And it's easy to get out of balance. But you simply need to take care of your body, exercise, proper diet, proper amount of sleep, your vitamin supplements, whatever it is that you do, staying hydrated. All of those things are simply essential. And because there's a tremendous interplay between our body and our spirit. And when our body is out of whack, even if you have a cold, you have the flu, it's hard to focus on spiritual things, and it begins to impact you. It'll begin to wear you down. Number two, we need to develop a safety net. Again, Christianity is the ultimate team concept. We will not make it on our own. We noted that when Elijah was down, after the Mount Carmel let down, that is when Elisha came into his life. And that's when the overlap. And we all need an Elisha. We all need somebody that's got our back. And it's the support of the local church, which is so essential. Again, that burning log is not going to make it by itself. It cannot generate enough energy to stay ignited, and neither can a Lone Ranger Christian. And so we all need that horizontal support, and we have been commanded in Hebrews 3:13 to exhort one another daily. That is how often we need encouragement. Number three, I would consider this one to be kind of a sleeper, folks. We need to be flexible. I really think, and this is one of the lessons that God is trying to teach me through COVID-19. I wish I were learning it quickly, not only for my sake, but for the sake of the entire church. I am not a flexible person. I am not plastic. I am concrete. Once I get an idea in my head, once I begin to chart a course, I just don't like to deviate. I can become very bullheaded. I can become very myopic, and just kind of, push my way through. And that's not good. I have learned some flexibility from COVID-19, but I fear that I have more lessons to learn. We've heard the term pivot a lot, and just as in athletics, sometimes you pivot. We've had to pivot directions here. It started last March when we only could meet with 10, and then 50. We're up to 90, and then back to 50, and online church has come to the forefront, and all of those things. So there have been a lot of lessons in flexibility. This one, beloved, actually it's biblical, and it comes from Nehemiah 4. And read through the chapter 2 times today with comprehension, and there are just a number of neat little lessons in here in addition to the flexibility lesson. And so the setting, Nehemiah has come back. They've begun, he waits, God makes him wait for 4 months. He's working into the hearts of the people. He's working into the hearts of the king. It probably was a several-month journey to get back. He is from Jerusalem. We do not know the last time he visited his hometown. So he now is the king's cupbearer. He's one of the most influential men on the planet. And that led to his coming back because God turned the heart of Artaxerxes to allow him to come back. He arrives, you can imagine, maybe the rumors and things like that. He doesn't say anything for 3 days. He just surveys the construction site. And on the 3rd day, he announces his plan. He tells the people of the good hand of God upon him and that we need to deal with this situation. We need to rebuild. And the people say, yeah, you're right. We need to rebuild. At the end of chapter 2, we are introduced to a couple of characters, Sanballat and Tobiah. They are Samaritans that are the enemies. They will continue throughout most of the rest of the book. And it's just some mild opposition at that point. They're being derogatory. Chapter 3, we have a plan in that Nehemiah divides the wall into sections and divides the people into work groups so that the part of the wall that you're working on is the part that is going to protect your home. Now, what does that ensure? Quality control. You're not going to take any shortcuts. You're not going to fudge in any area or anything like that. You're going to be sure that quality is job 1. The interesting thing, folks, about chapter 3, there are no masons mentioned. Now, you would think if you were rebuilding a stone wall, a few masons would be handy. And maybe they were there, but they aren't mentioned. We have priests, we have Levites, we have elders, we have ordinary people, but we do not have any masons. And people they begin to build. That takes us to chapter 4. Note how the chapter begins. But, it came to pass that when Sanballat, he's the leader of the Samaritan opposition. We don't know a whole lot about him. Heard that we builded the wall. He was wroth and took great indignation and mocked the Jews. And he spoke before his brethren. Note that next phrase, the army of Samaria. We don't have any details about that. We don't know how large, how well trained, how well armed. We do know this, there probably is no army within Jerusalem. I mean, there's a militia. The people have weapons. We know that. But the army of Samaria, and said, what are these feeble Jews? Will they fortify themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they make an end in a day? In other words, they think they're going to get this all done today? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of rubbish which are burned? I just laugh, folks, at verse 3. Now, Tobiah the Ammonite was by him, and the two go together. Sanballat is the leader. Tobiah is kind of the mindless goon. He's the leg breaker. And said, even that which they build, if a fox go up, he shall even break down their stone wall. How long did it take you to think of that? I mean, the guy has an IQ of a moth, all right? But it's just derogatory. Now, folks, here's the principle. Imagine this. A lost world mocking God's people. Has a whole lot changed? No. And they don't even have late night TV, do they? No. It is bullying. It is intimidation. It is mocking them. It is trying to shame them. It is trying to halt the project through basically junior high tactics, if you will. Well, beloved, what we face in our culture today certainly isn't new. From Hollywood, from late night TV, being the punchline of jokes and things like that, we stand in a long line. And usually it is a tactic of the world when God's people are making progress. And so there's a silver lining, if you will. Something else that I noticed in the chapter today, or was reminded of, if I could have that next slide, please, Dennis. Thank you. What's the response? Nehemiah does not say, woe with me. He doesn't have a pity party or anything like that. He prays. Prayer is the response to when the world makes fun of us. Look at the prayer, folks. Hear, O our God, we are despised. Turn their reproach upon their own head. Give them for a prey in the land of captivity. Cover not their iniquity. Let not their sin be blotted out from before thee. They have provoked thee to anger before the builders. Beloved, that's a serious prayer, isn't it? And do you know what? And I don't say this tonight to be cocky or arrogant. The world had better be careful how they treat God's people. They don't understand that right now. The Samaritans don't understand that. God takes stuff like this seriously. Nehemiah knows that, and his prayer reflects it. And when the world is making fun of us, it is time for a prayer meeting. And it is time to tell God on them. And let Him begin to deal with them. Notice the mocking. Dennis, take me back, please. Notice the mocking didn't work. The wall was built, and the wall was joined together unto half thereof. The people had a mind to work. I love that. We cannot allow the mocking of the world to keep us from building our walls. Now after that, it all goes away, doesn't it? Gong. Next slide, please, Dennis. You've broken this down perfectly. Thank you. Notice again, another but. No, they didn't go away. They ratchet up the intensity. And it came to pass that when Sanballat and Tobiah, notice that's what bullies do, folks. They go out and find other people, and they begin to build a godless coalition. The Arabians, the Ammonites, the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were made up, that the breaches began to be stopped. In other words, the gaps are filling in. Then they were very wroth. In verse 1, folks, they were wroth. Now we have an adverb. Now they're really mad. Notice, it goes from bullying unto death threats, and conspired all of them together to come and to fight against Jerusalem and to hinder it. Uh-oh. That's ratcheting up. We're going to get you. We're going to shut this down. And so the rhetoric, and by the way, folks, I don't want to ruin the ending of the book for you. That attack never took place. And I believe it was because of prayer. There was a lot of saber rattling, as we would call it today. There was a lot of dialogue going on. There was a lot of trash talking. We would use that in the athletic world. But for whatever reason, it was all a bluff. The Samaritan army mentioned in chapter 4 never attacks. I think it's a combination of prayer and preparation on the part of Nehemiah. Notice again, verse 9, nevertheless, we made our prayer unto God. Now, we don't have the contents of the second prayer, but it probably was very similar to the contents of the first prayer. He's telling God on them. God, listen to these people. You know we're doing your will. God, please have our back, protect us. But notice also, beloved, the practical action. And set a watch against them day and night because of them. And again, it disappears, right? Gong. Next slide, please. It had an impact, folks. It wore the people down. It was enough dealing with what they had to deal with. Judah said, we've looked at this passage before, and this is the idea. One of the causes of discouragement is disorder. It's chaos. It's clutter. It's things like that. You know, Judah, they're the big brother. Judah said, the strength of the bearers of the burdens is decayed, and there's much rubbish. We are not able to build the wall. But we were told that a few verses prior to this, the people had a mind to work. And so it is being effective. Notice our adversary said, they won't go away. They begin to whisper. It's more of a covert approach. They shall not know, neither see, till we come in the midst among them and slay them and cause the work to cease. Again, we're going to get you when you least expect it. And think about that, the psychological intimidation. Folks, if we were meeting tonight and we were like the underground church and knew at any moment that authorities could come in and just arrest us and take us away. I mean, that would be on your heart, that would be on your mind. And thankfully we don't have to worry about that tonight. And it came to pass that when the Jews which dwelt by them, in other words, not everyone is living within the city. There are people living out of the outskirts, and there's this intermingling of the two people groups. And so when they leave the sanctuary and the safety of the city and their brethren, and they go out, these people are talking to them individually. Which dwelt by them, they said unto us 10 times. Now that is figurative, meaning 10 in the Old Testament means completion. They won't let up, a determined foe. They said unto us 10 times from all the places, whence you shall return unto us, they will be upon you. Again, this pressure, we're going to get you. Next slide, please. Therefore, I said in the lower places, behind the wall, in the higher places, I said even the people after their families with their swords and their spears and their bows. He's taking, you know, the old saying in the Revolutionary War, trust in God, keep your powder dry. That's pretty good advice. That's what he's doing here. They're trusting in God, but they're keeping their powder dry. They're digging out their weapons. And I looked and rose up and said unto the nobles and to the rulers and to the rest of the people, I love this, focal point. Be not afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible. But again, be prepared and fight for your brethren. There are things worth fighting for. Your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses. And so there's this challenge there. The cause is greater than us. We need to remember what the ultimate result is. Next slide, please. And it came to pass, when our enemies heard that it was known unto us, and God, he's recognizing providence, brought their counsel to naught, that we returned all of us to the wall, every one unto his work. They lost the element of surprise. The death threats, because of prayer and preparation, aren't having the impact that they wanted it to have. They begin to back off. They recognize sovereignty. Things return to a somewhat level of normal. Now here's the flexibility, beloved. And it's an adaptation of the plan. And it came to pass from that time forth that the half of my servants wrought in the work, and the other half of them held both the spears, the shields, the bows, the habergeons, and the rulers were behind all of the house of Judah. And so, back in chapter 3, everybody was building. But then this very real external threat occurs of warfare, And Nehemiah realizes we can't continue to do this. And he splits the team up. Half build, half provide security. That's really cool to think outside the box like that. He didn't abandon the project. He adapted his plan. And it allows the work to continue. Next set of slides, please. They which builded the wall, they bore the burdens with those ladens. Every one of his hands wrought in the work, and the other hand held a weapon. And even those that were working, everybody was armed, just in case. For the builders, everyone had his sword girded by his side, and so they builded. And he that sounded the trumpet was by me. Verse 19, I think is applicable to us. And I said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, the work is great and large, and we are separated from the wall, one far from another. Yeah. That's the problem with COVID, folks. We've been separated. Nehemiah recognizes the danger of being separated because of the magnitude of the project. And he's reminding the people of the danger of that. And he creates a system that if a surprise attack occurs in one area, there's going to be trumpets. They're going to sound the alarm so that people can rally. And then we see the fruition of the plan. In that place you hear the sound of the trumpet, resort ye thither unto us, and again, looking up, our God shall fight for us. So we labored in the work, and half of them had held spears from the rising of the morning till the stars appeared. That is significant, folks. In the Old Testament, most work ended, workday ended at sunset. Now, I don't know in the Middle East when the stars come out, but I can tell you around here that on the average night, the stars begin to appear a half hour after sunset, on average, and it depends on the night. But it just shows their determination, folks, to work. Likewise, that same time, I said unto the people, let every one with his servant lodge within Jerusalem. It's another tweaking of the plan. Prior to this, people were going, at the end of the workday, they were going back to their homes in the suburbs. Nehemiah says, no, we can't do that anymore. I want everyone to stay within city limits. We need to be together. It's an adaptation. Lodge with his servant, that in the night they may be a guard to us and labor on the day. And then the last slide, Dennis. So neither I, nor my brethren, nor my servants, nor the men of the guard which followed me, none of us put off our clothes, saving every one put them off for washing. Battle ready all the time. They were prepared. What was the enemy's goal with the intimidation? To cease the effort or the building of the wall. But because of Nehemiah's wisdom and because of his flexibility, he did not abandon his plan. He tweaked it within the available resources, dividing the people, half security, half building, keeping the people together in the city so they could encourage one another and protect one another. And it works. There's this renewed energy, and the wall continues to go up. And I think, beloved, again, that it's one of the things sometimes we overlook with discouragement, because sometimes when we get discouraged, sometimes when the task, the burden seems too great, as it did with Judah in verse 10, we get myopic and we think our only option is, oh, I just can't do this anymore. I've got to quit. And that's exactly what the enemy wants. No. Is there a way that you can adapt the plan? Is there a plan B? Can things be tweaked, if you will? And so, flexibility, a sleeper. But I think it's one of the ways that we can deal with discouragement and get our tank filled back up, both on a physical and spiritual level. That's far enough for tonight. And let me just share some requests with you, and we'll take some time to pray. Dennis, thank you. Don't know if